Part 2 of the movie Strange Bell begins with Stephen walking around the village and ringing the bell as usual. However, at this time, the village is deserted. A storm is gradually approaching in the distance. Stephen suddenly wakes up when it turns out to be just a nightmare. After he crawled into the tree trunk in the forest in the previous part, he suddenly appeared in a narrow wall. Stephen tried to call for help, but no one heard. At this time, a group of people on a bus appeared out of nowhere in the forest. As usual, they were blocked by a large tree. The female driver had no choice but to turn back. Then the car drove straight into the village. While the passengers still acted normal, a young man named Elgin was immediately scared when he saw the scene outside. He asked the female driver to quickly drive away. Meanwhile, in the communal house, people were quickly cleaning up the components of the receiver. The storm in the distance immediately hit, causing the devices in the house to continuously short-circuit. Jade was cleaning up when she saw a strange bus in the distance. He immediately informed the people around her. Kenny and Donna went to meet the new guests. They still thought this was a normal village. Elgin was very worried and said that he had seen this place in his dream. A young girl named Marielle and a guy named Brick kept comforting Elgin and advising him to get out of the car to get some fresh air. Meanwhile, a young man named Randall was very angry because Elgin had caused chaos. Randall even shouted and wanted to hit Elgin. After returning home, Julie found that her mother had disappeared. There was a deep hole in the basement. Jim worriedly said that her mother might have fallen down. Julie immediately ran to the crowd and asked everyone to help save her mother. The man at the tavern immediately volunteered to help. Two passengers on the bus, Brick and Randall, also wanted to help. They went to the hole. They were about to dig it up when suddenly the surrounding area shook violently. The house immediately collapsed in front of the people outside. They quickly ran to save the trapped group. Randall was fortunately not seriously injured. However, the other three people were crushed deep inside by rocks. Then, Trudy appeared to give first aid to the injured. Trudy suddenly discovered Marielle among the passengers, so she happily ran to hug Marielle. It turned out that the two of them were lovers before. After many months of being missing, they finally met again in this very village. After falling into the hole, Toby unexpectedly met Victor again. The two walked along the underground path. Toby walked a short distance and discovered a suitcase with a white dress inside. They continued to go to a cave. This was the lair of the monsters. At this time, they were sleeping soundly. Toby and Victor tried to keep quiet and not dare to make a sound. At that moment, Victor suddenly discovered a doll and he was extremely scared. Toby tried to calm him down. The two then continued walking along the cave and discovered that the monsters were getting more and more crowded. In the middle of the cave were stacked stones. Toby saw a strange cave. She had just walked towards it when suddenly a child with a scary face appeared and scared her, causing her to scream in fear. It was almost dark now, so the monsters slowly woke up from their deep sleep. Victor and Toby panicked and ran away from there. Luckily, they woke up and saw the exit from the cave. It led outside the forest. Then Victor took Toby to an abandoned truck. This place was his secret base. They can use it as a shelter for the night to avoid being discovered by monsters. Meanwhile, in the village, seeing that it was getting dark, Donna asked all the passengers to go into the house quickly. The female driver did not agree and said that she would take them away from here. Knowing that there was not enough time to explain, Donna took a gun and shot the tire and then ordered everyone to go inside quickly. Some passengers were scared and ran away. At this time, Jim knew that he could not escape from the house in time, so he advised Julie to leave quickly. He reassured her and said that if he covered the house, the monsters would not be discovered. Although the girl did not want to, she had no other choice. After everything was settled, Donna explained about this mysterious village. Every night, a group of cannibal monsters appeared. Those who did not go into the house would be attacked by them. The group of passengers seemed to doubt Donna's words, but because she was holding a gun, no one dared to resist. Meanwhile, at Stephen's place, after trying to call for help, someone finally dropped the rope. He quickly climbed up. Here, Stephen discovered that he was also trapped in a cellar. Nearby, there was an old man tied up. Around him were many corpses in similar conditions. Stephen tried to ask the man, but he said that he had been tied up here for so long that he could no longer remember anything. Stephen wanted to free the old man, but the chain was too tight, so he could not open it. The old man then revealed that he was also a town resident. The monsters were just the surface. Behind them was a much more terrifying secret. As soon as he finished speaking, a sound of music started playing. Stephen discovered a music box nearby with a symbol of a dancing woman. As soon as the music stopped, worms crawled under the old man's skin. He suddenly scratched Stephen's shoulder and said that my blood is now your blood. As soon as he finished speaking, he fell to the ground and died on the spot. Stephen panicked and ran away. When Stephen realized he was still in the forest, the cellar had now turned into an ancient ruin. It was almost dark, and suddenly a dog came from somewhere and took Stephen to Victor and Toby. The three had just met again when Elgin suddenly appeared from somewhere. He He was being chased by monsters. Stephen thoughtlessly let him on the bus. Thanks to the stone he had with him, the four of them were lucky not to be attacked by monsters. Elgin then told about the bus, as well as about Jim's house collapsing. Toby was extremely worried when she heard that her husband had an accident. Meanwhile, in town, Elise and Fatima were trying to find the passengers who had fled. At this time, the monsters also appeared. They had no way to fight and ran into the house. The unfortunate passengers were chased by the monsters. They were naive and did not know what was terrifying in front of them. The two passengers found a house. They had just entered for a short while when they suddenly heard a voice outside asking them to open the door. The two did so without any doubt. Meanwhile, at the bus stop, a monster found an old couple hiding behind the bus. He showed interest before rushing to eat the two unfortunate victims. Outside, screams echoed everywhere. Randall wanted to go out to check but was stopped. Randall suddenly snatched Kenny's gun and then ordered the people around to put down their guns. While he did not know what to do, suddenly there was a knock on the door outside. Kenny took the opportunity to grab the gun and then subdued Randall before he could cause more trouble. At this time, outside, Jim and the pub owner were hiding under the house, trying not to make any noise. Suddenly, a guy named Brick woke up. Brick was so shocked that he saw his body being crushed by scrap metal that he immediately shouted for help. The pub owner tried to calm him down and said that nothing would happen. However, due to the serious injury, Brick started coughing up blood. After that, he couldn't hold on and died. At this time, a monster appeared from outside and rushed to bite pub owner's car. Jim was so scared that he just kept quiet and didn't dare to move. The next morning, everyone went out to check and discovered a horrifying scene. The pub owner's body was lying in the middle of the yard. His stomach had been removed. Julie was worried about her father, so she ran to the house. She breathed a sigh of relief when she learned that her father was still alive. Jim was then quickly taken to the hospital to treat his injuries. Toby's group had also returned to town. Jim was overjoyed to see his wife alive. They hugged each other tightly. Meanwhile, the female driver, after witnessing her passengers being brutally murdered, believed what the villagers had said. Stephen then explained the rules and welcomed the newcomers. Randall was still angry about yesterday. He seemed unwilling to cooperate. However, Stephen had just said a few threatening words that scared him, so he listened. After learning that Victor was still alive and in the village, Jade went to see him. Jade asked Victor about the strange circular object he found in the notebook. However, Victor was scared when he heard it and said that he didn't know anything about it. Victor told Jade to quickly get rid of it. After the house collapsed, Jim's family had nowhere to stay, so Mrs. Liu let them stay with her for a few days. Then Toby and Julie went to the warehouse to find some clothes to store. When they had just left, Toby suddenly discovered two strange-looking children standing from afar looking at her. The story did not stop there. When she arrived at the front porch, Toby discovered Ethan sitting and playing with puzzles. In particular, the symbol of the boy folded was exactly the same as the one she had seen under the cake. At this time, the two children appeared again and stood in front of Toby, making her extremely scared. Thinking that the matter was related to monsters, Toby went alone to the cave outside the forest and arranged the stones into the shape of a symbol. Suddenly, from afar, a series of children appeared from somewhere and rushed to hug Toby. She was startled and panicked. When she looked back, they had disappeared. Outside the village, Kenny and Ellis were looking for food when they suddenly heard a noise nearby. They went to check and found a girl sitting in the corner of a tree with an iron bar piercing her head. The strange thing was that she was still alive. Trudy ran over when she heard the news. The girl said that she was one of the passengers on the bus. Last night, she and her husband went into a house. Then they were lured by the monsters to open the door. They took her husband out, tortured him, and killed him, forcing the girl to witness everything. Trudy observed and discovered that the iron bar had pierced the young girl's head. It was a miracle that she was still alive. However, there was no emergency equipment in this village. They had no choice but to let the girl go as gently as possible. Then, Stephen appeared and used all his strength to pull the iron bar out of the girl's head. After she was in so much pain, she finally left with her husband. The next day, when Kenny went to the priest's house to get some things, he suddenly heard a noise from the basement. He went down to check and was surprised to see Sarah hiding underneath. Kenny immediately ran to tell Stephen. When Stephen heard what happened, he rushed to see her. Sarah said that she had also crawled into the tree hole like Stephen that day. However, the exit was this basement. Stephen tried to comfort her and said that he would help her stay safe here. Then Stephen told Kenny everything and asked him to keep it a secret from anyone. When Stephen just stepped out of the house, he suddenly felt extremely dizzy. Under his skin, worms were crawling. Meanwhile, in the shared house, Randall had just arrived, but he didn't care about anyone. He was always causing trouble with others. He was also lazy and refused to work, just lying on the sofa all day. Donna felt angry, so she kicked him out of the house. After that, Randall became homeless and had to stay alone on the bus. At night, monsters appeared around the bus. Randall saw them and cursed them continuously, but he still did not dare to go out. A few days passed. Jim's wound healed. He continued to investigate the voice coming from the radio that he heard a few days ago. Jim told Stephen about this story. He thought that this place was a secret experiment of the government and the people in the village were the test subjects. Although it sounded absurd, it was very convincing. Jim did not give up and continued to tell this story to Donna. But she said that he should not tell anyone for now because without solid evidence, it would make everyone worried. Because Kenny wanted to confirm what Sarah had done, Kenny went down to the basement to see her alone. Then, Sarah couldn't bear it anymore, so she told him everything she had done, including the night she opened the hospital door, causing Kenny's father to be brutally murdered by monsters. After knowing the truth, Kenny was extremely angry. Kenny was even angrier when Stephen knew everything, but he still chose to protect her. Then Kenny threw away his police badge and left. The news of Sarah's survival quickly spread throughout the village. When Jim and Toby found out, they immediately went to see her, constantly cursing her and wanting her to be sentenced to death. Stephen had to stop them. Stephen thought that Sarah was an important factor connected to this village. She could be the key to helping everyone escape from here. Only then did Jim and Toby calm down. They warned her not to come near her son again. Although Sarah was accepted to stay in the village, no one wanted to get close to Sarah. They thought she was a mad woman who killed her brother. Sarah returned to the old house to find Nathan's belongings, but the place now had a new owner. They said that all of Sarah's and her brother's belongings had been thrown into Mrs. Lou's warehouse. Sarah had no choice but to go to the restaurant to see her. She apologized for what she had done. Mrs. Lou was very angry, but she still returned the package and told Sarah never to come here again. When Sarah just stepped out, she was suddenly caught by Kenny. He rushed over and grabbed the package from her hand and threw everything on the ground. Sarah tried to take back Nathan's old souvenir statue, but Kenny immediately snatched it and smashed it into pieces. He warned her never to appear in front of him again. People around saw it, but no one came to stop it. Only Elgin came to help her collect her things. After the radio station construction plan failed, Jade stayed alone in the house for days researching ways to escape the village. He often saw illusions of the mysterious man in the picture. He even saw a strange bleeding symbol. Jade didn't know what to do when Victor suddenly came to see him. After many days of thinking, Victor finally decided to tell Jade about the old stories. Then Victor took Jade to an empty lot where hundreds of cars were buried. Victor said that the man in the picture was Kevin, a former resident of the village. He was a funny person, so he was loved by the people around. However, something happened when Kevin accidentally learned about the strange circular symbol in the book. From then on, he became a different person. He was extremely crazy and liked to kill. All the villagers were killed by him. Only Victor survived because he hid in time in the basement. Victor advised Jade not to try to find out about the circular symbol if he did not want to be corrupted. Meanwhile, Stephen went to the priest's old house and found that the furniture had disappeared. In the middle of the house was the strange music box that Stephen had seen in the basement. It played a song with a creepy melody. A girl appeared from somewhere and danced. Stephen just walked closer and was suddenly scared by it, causing him to wake up. He found himself in Mrs. Lou's house again. Kenny saw that Stephen looked tired, so he helped Stephen home. On the way, they saw the yellow leaves on the trees falling, something that had never happened in the town before. Suddenly, Stephen's arm hurt again. There were strange worms in the classroom. The creepy music from earlier was playing again. The young girl walked up from the basement. However, it seemed that only Stephen could see her. He turned around and saw that the girl had disappeared. A few days later, due to the arrival of new guests, the food in the town was getting scarcer. Donna estimated that they only had about a month's worth of food left. The storm had damaged the vegetables badly. They needed time to grow new crops. The scarcity of food also caused arguments among the people in the house. An angry man said that Elgin had intentionally stolen food from the kitchen. Although Elgin tried to explain that he didn't have any, the man still cursed him. He also wanted to kick all the new members out of the house. Ellis discovered the incident and ran over to stop it. During the argument, the man accidentally stabbed Ellis in the stomach, causing a lot of blood to flow out. Fatima panicked and decided to take Ellis to the infirmary, but it was already dark and full of monsters outside. Elgin didn't think twice and volunteered to go out and get the car. He drove straight to the parking lot and drove away before the monsters caught him. The three of them then successfully reached the infirmary. Trudy quickly put Ellis on the operating table. The wound was so serious that surgery was needed. However, due to the lack of blood reserves, more relatives were needed to draw blood. Stephen wanted to save his son, but he was worried that the terrible thing in his body would infect Ellis. At this time, the worms emerged again, causing Stephen great pain. He suddenly thought of a plan. He ran outside alone and stood facing the monsters. Stephen used a knife to slash the monster's neck and then used his blood to cover the wound. He felt the worms under his arm gradually passing through the monster. It initially laughed gleefully, not understanding what was going on. Suddenly, its entire body changed painfully. The others no longer cared about Stephen. He took the opportunity to run back into the house. At this time, Stephen's blood had returned to normal. Thanks to the timely blood transfusion, Ellis's surgery was also a success. He was lucky to escape critical condition. The next morning, when everyone went out, they found that the monster from yesterday was still lying motionless. Could the worms in Stephen's blood kill these immortal monsters? Trudy wanted to bring the monster's body inside to dissect it to see what was inside. Then, the three of them placed the monster's body on the operating table. When they opened its stomach, Trudy was extremely shocked to learn that it had the same structure as a human body. Except for one thing, the internal organs were all shriveled up as if it had died a long time ago. Then it stabbed the gallbladder. A yellow liquid flowed from inside. She believed that the worms were still inside the monster, so its liquid could be the method to destroy the monsters out there. While the others were working hard to maintain life, Jim still thought that this village was just a government experiment. Tabi saw her husband like that and was very disappointed. She advised him to wake up soon and go help the people around. He was standing outside and suddenly discovered a remote-controlled plane. It turned out to be Randall's. He said that this plane was a gift for a cousin. Jim suddenly had an idea. Jim took Randall to his family's old car and searched inside for radio wave receivers. Jim thought that if the plane flew high enough, it would pick up signals from further away. After a while of hard work, they finally succeeded in making the antenna. However, since it was just a toy plane, it could not be carried on a person. Jim was disappointed, but Randall had another idea. He thought that if this was really an experiment inside the village, Jim decided that tonight he and Randall would hide inside the car to track the monsters to see where they went and what they did every night. Meanwhile, Tabi went to see Jade and told her what happened in the underground cave. She accidentally saw the symbol in the book and said that she also saw this in the cave of the monsters. Jade could tell Victor what it meant. The two then went to see him and asked again. However, Victor was still stubborn and did not want to say anything. Tabi tried to persuade him and said that this might be the only way to return home. Finally, Victor was moved. Victor took Tabi to an abandoned parking lot. There were pictures that Victor had drawn in the past. As soon as he looked at the pictures, memories from the past suddenly came back. It turned out that Victor came here not alone, but also with a younger sister. However, on that fateful night, because he was too scared, he could not protect his sister, causing her to suffer tragic death. Victor had just received a painting of a strange tower. Victor said that it was where the children were being held. His mother thought that they had to save these children in order to escape the village. Meanwhile, strange things began to happen in the village. While Elgin was bathing in the bathtub, he suddenly heard a strange music. The music box suddenly appeared in front of him. Before he could understand what was going on, he was suddenly pulled under the water. A mannequin with a terrifying face appeared in front of Elgin. Kenny had just returned home when he heard the phone ring. A man's voice was on the other end. He kept repeating a sentence. They touch, they break, they rob. No one here is free. As long as the music is playing, they will never stop. Kenny listened and did not understand what was going on. He looked at the pot of soup on the stove. Inside were thousands of cicadas flying. Suddenly, one of them rushed to bite Kenny's arm. He woke up with a start. It turned out to be just a dream. However, when Kenny looked at his arm, he found it bruised right where the cicadas had bitten him. At this moment, Stephen suddenly came to see Kenny. Stephen wanted to go to the infirmary with Kenny and asked Trudy to extract more of the monster's juice to use as a weapon. When they arrived, they discovered a chaotic scene. Marielle was extremely scared and said that she heard something in the basement. When they went down to check, they were horrified to see a lot of cicadas surrounding the monster's body. Kenny saw it and immediately recognized it as the thing that appeared in his dream. Donna had just arrived at this time. However, when Donna and Stephen went down to the basement, they could no longer see any cicadas. They discussed how to dispose of the monster's body. However, when the group was carrying it out, Randall saw it from afar. After that, Randall went to see Donna alone. He seemed to have a plan in mind. That afternoon, when Stephen and the others had just returned to the village, they suddenly heard a scream from a nearby house. They ran to check and discovered a horrifying scene. The body of a woman was lying dead on the bed. Her body was blown up and broken in an extremely terrifying way. The husband cried and said that his wife was sleeping and started talking in her sleep. Then her body suddenly fell apart in front of him. When Stephen asked what she said, the man said, "They touched, they broke, they robbed. No one here is free." Kenny was very surprised when he heard that, because those were the words the man had said on the phone. At this time, the people around were curious, so they gathered in front of the house. Stephen tried to calm them down and asked everyone to return home before it got dark. Jim went into the woods alone to meet Randall as promised. There, Jim discovered that Randall had taken Donna hostage. Randall thought that she might be a government spy. Randall had seen them carrying the body of a monster to get rid of the evidence. Monsters were rumored to be immortal and could not not be killed so easily. Although Donna tried to explain, Randall still did not care. Jim was about to untie Donna when Randall rushed in and stopped him. Stephen arrived in time and pointed a gun at Randall, forcing him to surrender. It was getting darker and darker and the monsters were about to appear. They were about to drive back to the village, but Randall suddenly took the key and threw it away. Randall was excited to see who was the government spy. The group had no choice but to get into the car to hide. Luckily, Stephen had brought the monster's vial with him, so he smeared it on the bullets and loaded them into the gun. He wanted to test whether the bullets could kill the monsters. Late that night, as usual, the monsters began to come out of the forest. However, they did not approach the car but surrounded it. Suddenly, the creepy music started again. There was a crashing sound from below. Randall was scared and broke the window and ran away. The others saw this and also made their way to the car. Stephen tried to stay and shoot each bullet at the monsters, but they seemed to be unharmed. At this time, Jim successfully started the car to help them escape death by a hair's breadth. Meanwhile, Randall unfortunately ran deep into the forest. He was attacked by countless cicadas flying straight at him. At this time in the village, a young man named Reggie suddenly went crazy, constantly saying that it was coming, everyone would die. Upstairs, Marielle suddenly discovered that the area was full of flying cicadas. They attacked her, causing her to suddenly have a seizure. Marielle screamed in pain. Her eyes turned a terrifying white. Trudy was extremely worried, but she didn't know what to do. The disease then began to spread to the others. Julie, who was at home, suddenly had the same symptoms. It seemed that they were being tortured in their subconscious. Only then did Elgin tell her the dream he had before coming to this town. At that time, Elgin met a boy dressed in white. He kept repeating a sentence: they touch, they break, they rob. No one here is free. While the people around did not understand what it meant, a woman nearby suddenly heard these sentences very familiar. She said that this was a part of an old rhyme that she had heard when she was a child. Stephen was extremely shocked when he heard it. The next morning, the whole village was silent. Julie and Marielle had not woken up yet. Donna and a few others went into the forest to search and found Randall lying unconscious in the middle of the forest. They had just touched him when he suddenly let out a terrifying scream. At this time, Julie and Marielle were also in the same condition. Stephen could not bear it, so he decided to go to Sarah and hope that she could find a solution. They then went deep into the forest to find the ancient ruins where Stephen had gotten lost before. Sarah suddenly felt extremely painful. Her nose kept bleeding. Sarah said that Stephen was the one who brought the monster to the village. It was extremely excited and would not stop. It wanted everyone to suffer. Unless they destroyed the music box, everyone would die. Stephen was stunned after hearing that. He did not know where the music box came from or how to destroy it. Meanwhile, Jade wanted to find out the truth behind the circular symbol, so he went alone to the cave of the monsters and ventured inside to explore. After a while of groping in the dark, Jade finally reached the center of the cave. He had just stepped into the middle of the room when the mysterious children suddenly appeared. They lay on the rocks and muttered some kind of spell. Jade looked up at the cave and discovered that a secret passage had opened. However, after seeing the paintings that Victor had drawn, Toby suspected that what his mother had said years ago might be true. Finding the tower and saving the children might be the key to escaping the village. Toby wanted Victor to take her to the tower. Jade was worried that her wife might be in danger, but she still wanted to risk her life to try. Victor then took Toby into the forest to a large tree with bottles hanging on it. In the middle of the tree was a deep hole. Victor said that this was a special portal. His mother had tried to go inside, but she was killed before she could do so. Toby hugged Victor and thanked him before she crawled into the hole and disappeared without a trace. After Stephen learned the truth that he was the cause of the tragedy in the village, he was extremely remorseful. Donna came to comfort Stephen. She believed that he would definitely find a solution. Then Stephen decided to go into the forest again and determined to find the music box that Sarah had mentioned. At that moment, a young man named Reggie suddenly appeared from somewhere, holding a gun and pointing it at Stephen. He seemed to be controlled by someone. He kept apologizing, but his hand still pulled the trigger. Stephen was unfortunately shot in the shoulder. Stephen had no choice but to take down Reggie before he could do anything more. Then he went to the ancient ruins. He used a lighter to light the torch. Suddenly, the illusion from the previous day appeared again. Stephen discovered that Julie and the others were tied up inside. They kept screaming in pain as if being tortured. The creepy music suddenly started again. The music box appeared before his eyes. Stephen's wife, who had died years ago, also appeared. She advised him to give up, not to waste his effort because they would all die. Stephen ignored what she said. He turned around and smashed the music box into pieces. Julie and the others suddenly woke up. They were back to normal, no longer possessed by the monster. Jim was extremely happy to see his daughter awake. They did not know that Toby had now wandered into a very strange place. She went deep into the forest and found a lighthouse right in front of her. It turned out that the tower that Victor's mother had mentioned was referring to this lighthouse. house. Tabi then went up the stairs and went straight to the top of the tower. Here she met the boy in white. He apologized before suddenly pushing Tabi down. When she woke up, she found herself in the hospital. The female doctor said that a group of climbers found Tabi unconscious in the forest and took her to the hospital. She was shocked to realize that this was indeed the outside world. After all, Tabi had really escaped from the nightmare town. What Victor's mother said was true. However, can her family and others find the answer? Remember to subscribe to the channel to watch the next part of the movie as soon as possible. Goodbye, and see you again.